Terrol Dew Johnson. He's Tohono O'odham from Arizona. And then next to him is, and I hope I get pronounced this right, Loa Balumnaech I knew I was missing this one. Ryan, and she's Tsimshian. And then next to Loa is Jacinthe Two Bulls, who is Haida. And lastly here, we have this wonderful artist here from Panama. She's Wunan. Adair Cabezon.
Raise your hand.
Motahitu. Well, gracias. I knew I was going to have a hard time. And then we have a couple of translators here. One is Annalena Barrigón. And then we also have Dr. Steve Beckham, who's also going to be doing some interpreting for us today. So without further ado, I would like to introduce also Terry DeWald. And first we'll have our weavers tell us a little bit about themselves. And we're going to be doing, I think, some triple translation here from Wunan to Spanish to English. So hopefully nothing will get lost in translation. So Terrell, why don't you tell us a little bit here?
Why doesn't everybody just, Terrell, just kick it off, your help from speaking here, and talk about the weaving tradition you have and what, just about your weaving as well.
Okay, well, good afternoon. My name is Terrol Dew Johnson. I'm from the Tohono O'odham Nation in southern Arizona. We're the second largest reservation in the country. And I have been weaving for well over 25 years, starting when I was about 10 or so. And lately people have been asking me when I started. So I actually started in school. It was part of Arizona history. And so in order to get a good grade, I decided to take the basketry class. The teacher that taught the class, Margaret Acosta, actually saw that I really took to it. So during the summertime, she would invite me over to learn. And from there, I learned from one of her teachers. And then from that teacher, I learned from another weaver. And I basically just learned as much as I could the techniques and the legends and the stories and the preparation and all that from each of the weavers that definitely built the foundation for the work that I do now. I'm more well known from a contemporary work, and these two pieces are considered contemporary, different from the Tohono O'odham style of basket weaving. And the only reason why I think they're called contemporary is because they're different materials. I do different shapes and different designs with them, and I love it. I'm very happy and blessed and honored to be able to weave with what the Creator had provided. And I always say I can weave with anything that bends, and if not, I can bend to it.
Loa Balumnaech Ryan, Wayu, Metlakatla, BC, and Seattle, Washington, Delaware. Luamgoru Dawo Nitsan. My name is Loa Balumnaech Ryan. I'm from Metlakatla, BC. I was actually born on a reservation in northern British Columbia on the coast. My parents were both from a very royal house on each side. Let me finish identifying myself. I now live in the Seattle area. And my parents were very involved politically, socially, and a large family. We lived in the village with uncles across the street, cousins down the road. It was all family, one big family. And the village is just outside of Prince Rupert, British Columbia. As I grew up there, we were in a village that was created by he wasn't a missionary, he was not an ordained minister, but he was known as Mr. Duncan, William Duncan, who came aboard and he took over the village constructed canneries, brick factories, and everything else, and kind of in a British format. So when I was growing up, we didn't even know we were Indian. My dad sat us all down one day and he says, "We have to tell you who you are." I'm sorry. That's when I found out I was Tsimshian. I'm sorry, I think you should listen. I'll talk more later when I compose, but...
My name is Jacinthe Two Bulls. Two Bulls is my married name. My maiden name is Lacornium. I learned how to weave from my mother, Vicky Lacornium, who learned from Dolores Churchill, as it wasn't being passed on through families. I grew up in Heidelberg. I started weaving when I was 5. My mom came in and taught our kindergarten class. She was just learning at the time to weave at that time, and came in and taught us to weave. And just basic planing, thread cedar. And by the time I was 7, I finished a full basket. I know there's not any other young people that picked it up, at least in my village. I'm not sure what went into it. Even my sister didn't. She was taught as well, but she didn't pick it up like I did. I'm not sure why. I just feel a connection. I need to do it, and when I'm weaving, it feels like tapping into something. You know, it's an ancient art form, and it practiced around the world, and it just feels like there's, you know, so much history and past to it. It's just necessary to carry it out. In the past year, I've gotten more becoming second nature in the weaving, so I'm able to do free form. I'm an adult in the last year, and I just feel like I'm coming into my own as an artist now, as a weaver. I'm still learning, always learning, but
para mí es un privilegio de estar aquí presente con ustedes.
It's a privilege to be here with you.
Gracias por venir a vernos la muestra que vamos a dar hoy.
Thank you for coming and seeing our presentation.
Mi nombre es Haida Cabezón de Paquito, vengo de Panamá y estoy en la comunidad de Río Hondo de Panamá Este.
So she's from the community of Rio Hondo in eastern Panama.
Y lo primero, para introducir lo que es el arte de la canasta de la línea Wunan.
So this is what the basket making art of the Wunan people is.
Aprendí con mi hermana al verlos lo que ella estaba haciendo.
She began to learn her basket weaving by watching her sister.
Y empezamos después que iba, porque estaba en la escuela, iba a mi lugar y durante las vacaciones empezábamos a tejer con mis amigas.
So she was in school and she began her weaving during school vacations. When she was young.
Solamente como para curiosidad, algo así.
Just as a curiosity, as a pastime.
Pero mis hermanas y las otras mujeres de la comunidad sí estaban teniendo el interés de lo que es el arte.
So, but it was becoming more and more widespread among the women of the community to be interested in basket making.
Eso pasó cuando tenía 15 años.
When she was 15 years old.
Y a los 20 años decidí como tomar la importancia de lo que es el arte.
So she really began when she was 15 in seriously, but when she was 20, she began to reflect and explore in the artistic side of basket making.
Y viendo la importancia que es porque a través de ella la gente de nuestra comunidad han estado para ir a la escuela. Dependemos de esto porque allá en Panamá el pueblo indígena es como discriminado, no hay opción para que puedan trabajar en las instituciones, muy poco se ve, y entonces el pueblo indígena
because in Panama there is discrimination against the indigenous people, there aren't that many opportunities for economic advancement among the people, and she saw that that basket making might be one way to essentially move forward.
Pues las mujeres de la comunidad han tomado importancia porque a través de ella podemos alimentar, podemos educar a nuestros hijos, podemos ir a los hospitales cuando estamos enfermos y nos sirve para muchas cosas.
So weaving for them has really been something that's allowed them to not only subsist and eat, but to educate their children, to go to the hospital when they're sick. It's really been a wonderful liberation for them.
Y son materiales vienen de la misma selva.
So the materials they get for their weaving, are we too detailed for you at this point, or would you like?
No, that's fine.
So the materials for the weaving come from the surrounding jungle.
Y los colores también son de la misma selva.
And the colors are the colors of the jungle.
Y también agradezco al señor Loran, no me recuerdo.
He's someone who has studied and written and photographed. Lauren Mieres. He's from Santa Fe. He has visited with them.
So she's very grateful to this person who has visited from Santa Fe and photographed them and photographed their baskets.
Just one question. So are the materials naturally colored, vegetable dye, aniline dye, or is that just the natural colors of the plants itself? Right?
¿Los colores de las canastas son naturales o son coloreados de sustancias naturales, todas naturales, o también de colores aladinas, por ejemplo?
Comercial.
Bueno, no sé, tal vez puedo ayudar en esto, en Haida. Nosotros usamos los colores naturales.
Natural colors.
Especialmente aquí lo tenemos los ejemplos, que es una hoja que se llama puchán.
So some are leaves. This is one particular leaf that they use to make an infusion to dye the palm. Debe decirnos primeramente, esta fibra es de la palma negra, ¿no?
No, es otro material que lo tenemos,
Este es nahual.
nahuala, lo decimos en español nahuala.
That's called nahuala.
Con esto empieza la canasta.
Okay. So that's what they use to
Hay muchos colores, por ejemplo esta guía se llama azafrán, que es color amarillo, es natural. Y esto es un líquido, es también una semilla que se llama agua. También sirve para colorear la fibra de chunga, y también este mismo líquido se usa para pintar.
So this liquid is used. They're all natural dyes. This liquid is used not only to dye the fiber, but they also use it to paint the designs on their bodies.
Like henna.
Yes.
Y también hay mezcla de colores. Hay una madera que se llama cocobolo, que también es un arte preciosa, que de madera es muy bonito.
Sí.
Pero eso no lo tenemos aquí, es otro arte que siempre los hombres se hacen.
Well, the women make baskets, the men carve cocobolo wood, which if any of you have been to Costa Rica or Panama, you'll see there are many things made of that beautiful wood.
Okay, but and let's, while we're in this material, I'd like to go back to Loa and have her finish. And then from there, you talk about your materials and gathering them, the time and preparation and everything, and Terrell and as well. Okay.
Okay.
And then we'll get back to motifs and everything else.
Thank you for your patience. Sorry. I grew up in Metlakatla, like I said, but my father brought us down to Vancouver for a better education when I was 14. And so we were away from the reservation. I've been away for several years now. Still have cousins living out there. But when I was probably about 30 years old, I had an interest in basket weaving, only to find out that there was no one to teach me. No one. If there was anyone available, they weren't making it known. Until I moved to Washington State, probably in the 70s, I took a first class. I always had an interest, even though I went to college, was working in a school, raised my 2 children with the husband. And I found an interest in my hands just needed to do something. Took a class from a lady in Bremerton, Washington, and found out that she left probably a week later. So then I scrounged around for years looking for someone. In about 1990, I started taking classes at the Squawan tribe, learning how to do different forms of art. I learned how to carve bent boxes, carve masks. I learned how to make tools. I learned how to make, not raven's tail weaving, but I did chilkat weaving. This is raven's tail weaving. I learned how to make drums. I learned everything possible that the Squawan tribe was offering. And the classes were taught by a lot of non-natives, which at that stage of the game, it was really good to learn from them because they had traveled up to northern BC, learned the different styles and carvings, etc. But the weaving was still hard to find someone to teach me. I found Ed Carrier from the Suquamish tribe. He actually got me going on a bark basket, and it was made out of this bark and this is the way it comes off the tree. And he taught me how to gather, taught me how to make a berry basket out of a piece like this, which was carved like so, and then carved inside, and then steam bent and folded up, so that it was an emergency basket for the woods. And then we wove a little decorative diagonal weaving for the top. And that's when I went home and I practiced stripping. I was put a plywood board across my pool table. And I was up until 3 in the morning, taking my knife and running it down the seam. Cedar bark is very straight. You gather from a healthy tree that grows straight, has no bumps on it, and it's healthy. And so when you split it like that into strips like this, it was so easy to do because the knife just followed the grain of the wood. And I stayed up till 3, like I said. I called my mother the next day and I said, "Mom, has anybody been a weaver in our family?" She said, "Oh yes, your grandmother Lucy was a weaver, who was my dad's mother. And my great-grandmothers were both weavers. And then who knows from there on. But I squealed to her. I said, "It's in my blood." So from then on, then I looked and looked and looked for someone to teach me. I took classes from Lummi, I took classes from Suquamish, I took classes from Skokomish. Still no Tsimshian weavers, no one knew of. I went to galleries and museums looking for Tsimshian baskets. As this museum here, there is not a Tsimshian basket. I go to Portland Art Museum, they may have had one. I went around looking and looking, searching for Tsimshian baskets. So I thought to myself, when I can learn the Tsimshian style, I will make sure I create as many Tsimshian baskets that I can to let the public know that we are still here. Tsimshians are still here, and we were great gatherers and fishermen and all that, and they needed all of these baskets for utilitarian purposes. So it's been my passion ever since then. I didn't even go back to work. I decided that this is what I wanted to do, and now it's almost a full-time job.
I don't have any of the, I actually was working on one yesterday. The traditional materials that I was working on, the piece that I was working on was a plate basket. I was telling people yesterday I didn't know what it was going to be, but now I know it's going to be plate. So, and the materials that I used for that was yucca and bear grass. And I do plan to do a lacing around it, and I'll use devil's claw, which is black. There are some baskets, Tohono O'odham baskets in the current exhibit here. And you know, like I said, my stuff, I learned that style and all the different techniques and the different methods of preparing the material. And then I branched off and did a lot of contemporary work. And a lot of people ask me why I did that. That was just because I got bored. You know, I think once you start your foundation and learn as much as you can to weave the basics, you can pretty much just branch out anywhere, and I did. And when I first started doing contemporary work, you know, I really had to justify and defend why I veered off from traditional weaving. And at that time, you know, traditionally weaving, Tohono O'odham weaving was done by the men. But since I went to school and the teacher that I had basically said, you know, at this point, it doesn't really matter who's learning as long as it can be kept alive. And so with that, I ran with that. I wove and would experiment with different fibers and different materials, all kinds of designs and shapes. And so these are pieces that I have that I bought with me. That this piece here is actually a gourd basket that is the basis of gourd. I cleaned it, drilled it, and started weaving on it with traditional material, which is bear grass. And I purposely dyed it in the sun, released it in the sun to match the gourd. With this here actually was an experiment that I worked with in a collaboration piece with a couple of architects from New York City. And they heard one of my lectures I did at the Smithsonian, and so they actually contacted me and wanted to prove that you can actually build a building by weaving it or using weaving techniques. I wasn't ready to weave a building, so I said, let's start small, let's just start with baskets. And so they've actually, with the ideas that, you know, with brainstorming, came up with shapes and sizes in the computer, and they've actually printed out patterns. And I had to look for the material to actually weave these baskets that we designed in the computer. And so this is one of them. And this piece actually has bark, it's laced with bark. And I incorporated the traditional Tohono O'odham fiber bear grass and used wax iron to pull the pieces together, sew the pieces together. And with a lot of my contemporary work, I like to incorporate traditional material to show people that, you know, yes, I'm stepping out of the realm of traditional and into contemporary. I'm still bringing the traditional side ideas and methods with me. You know, that just keeps me rooted. You know, for myself, it's just how I pay homage to the teachers and the culture that I learned from. So I'm very honored again. And, you know, I work with many materials. I work with fibers. I work with silks, linens. I work with branches and bones and human hair and animal hair and glass and metal. So, you know, like I said, I like the challenge. I like the work, and you know, I love meeting other weavers several years ago, I made this huge mat. It's called a basket quilt. And I wove it for the Smithsonian because I actually was asked to curate the show with them, along with several other weavers from around the country. And I was very fortunate enough with the basket weaving to have me travel the world literally and meet several different weavers from different countries and exchange fibers and learn different techniques. And so with this quilt, I traded and bartered material and wove this mat that had different materials from different tribes, different techniques, different styles, and I'm very fortunate and blessed to have the honor to travel and meet different weavers. So actually, I think in April, I went up to Washington for a weavers teaching weavers gathering, and this is where I met Loa. And so I actually took her class and spent the whole weekend weaving with her. Well, she was teaching me how to weave. And, I look forward to finishing my basket when I'm going to weave it. So I'm very happy and very blessed again. And the materials that I use, are traditional and are, just filled and with history, with honor, with grace, and right now it's getting harder and harder to find some materials. And again, with just the knowledge and the experiment and just the courage to go out and look for alternative material. I think I'll be doing that forever, and I think I'm forever a basket.
One of the things that, of course, is paramount in basketry is gathering the material, taking the time to do that at the right time of the year, then preparing the material, then going on to weave the basket. And perhaps Terrell could just, as celebrated and as esoteric as some of your great contemporary pieces are, maybe just let them know a little bit what we were talking about at lunch is, and I'm associated with this tribe quite a bit as well, we're buying from the weavers, how tough it is to get the traditional material in the year 2012, as far as the bear grass and everything else.
Yeah, and a lot of it is due to just land being bought up by private owners. A lot of the materials that we use are considered weeds, and a lot of people get rid of them by pesticides or by burning. And a lot of it also is just by development. A lot of people that come in and buy them don't know what it is. So they go and they clear cut or just mow them over and then boom, buildings right on top of them. Areas that, my ancestors have gone for thousands of years to pick material. So it's getting a lot harder to find material. We're actually getting to the point where we're starting to grow our own material. And I actually am a founder and director for the Tohono O'odham Basket Weavers Organization, where we have to look at these concerns that come up for basket weavers in my tribe. Not only my tribe, but other tribes. There's several basket weavers organizations around our country and are facing the same dilemma that we on the Southwest area are facing as well with finding material. But again, we're trying to find solutions. We're banding together with other weaving tribes. We're talking to government and state officials to actually figure out how we can designate areas or actually be allowed to talk to private landowners to go and pick. We in the past had obtained permits to go out and pick on state land and government land and pick the materials. And a lot of it's basically education for non-natives about how we don't just go out and kill a plant by just taking its fibers. We actually have a prune. We are caretakers of Mother Earth, and we've been handed down these methods of picking materials. We only take what we need. We don't damage. We prune the trees. So it's a lot of education to non-natives that are afraid that we'll take away their landscape plants and things like that. So it is an issue, and it's going to be an issue for a very long time. And a lot of it has to also be caused also by environment. It's getting hotter and drier in the desert, and a lot of these plants are dying away. So we're at the point where we're looking for alternatives. We're grasping onto a lot of knowledge that are lost by every time an elderly passes away. So with the organization that I started, we're on a fight to keep a lot of the knowledge and a lot of the how-tos to keep this weaving tradition alive.
Quite disappointing when you're a weaver that might not be able to pass a driver's test. You have to get a grandson or a nephew to drive you to get your materials 150, 200 miles away. That cost and the gas, go to gather the material and end up having a highway patrolman arresting you for being on BLM land. The knowledge of this really is paramount. So it's an uphill battle, and I think that it's really worthwhile. Okay, so maybe you can just talk about your materials and how tough that is, or easy, and how many trips she has to make back and forth to her homeland to get this at the right time of year.
Yeah, I just came back. I went in April and got this roll of yellow cedar. I used red cedars in this Loa, but also yellow. And this roll, I got it pretty high up, but it's already full of sap in April. It shouldn't have been because of the snowpack disappearing. There's no more security in the roots of the trees, and they're dying. And when I started breaking it apart, it starts mushing and stripping off funny. So that's the first time I've seen it. I knew it was coming, but that's the first couple rolls that I just think it's go back and try again. But got several trees from several different areas, and none of them were like the material I had worked with in the past. So it's pretty scary. But I have been adapting and trying to use different materials, but it's just such a perfect material, like Loa was saying, it just grows so, like the red cedar, so straight, and then it dries like wood. And then this one, the yellow, has the elasticity and the bright color, and it's just the most perfect. I can't imagine using it. I have used other materials, but this is just feels right, and it's really devastating to see the change in the trees. And I also use spruce roots, but more rare. Yeah.
Is the change coming because of climate change, or sometimes in the past, might you have good years and bad years as far as gathering material, or is it really on the decline?
Yeah, they always, there was never, haven't been weaving that long. Maybe other people would know better, but I think it's always been the same as far as, I've been raised on that like 25 years. It's always split right.